Welcome to the Lift Your Story podcast with guest Erin McCullough, the Joy Slinger.
Hi, everyone. I am Lori Ann. I am that gal from Milton, Ontario, Canada, and I am with.
I am that guy. I am Roy Miller from Dallas, Texas. We'd like to welcome you to our Lift Your Story podcast.
In this episode, we have Erin McCullough, and she is the Joy Slinger. We're going to learn more about that. Thank you for so much being here.
Oh my gosh, thanks for having me. Love being here.
Great. So tell us about what a Joy Slinger is.
Yeah, so basically I was that person that had a business that was crazy. Actually even started before I had a business. I was just that person that was overthinking, and I had an anxiety disorder that got so bad at one point that it holed me up in my home. And it started with this talk therapy that I had started in, and my life just kept getting narrower and narrower as I was having this experience of panic attacks. And I vowed to myself that if I could figure out a way out of this anxiety, that I would share it with other people. So nobody ever had to have that experience again, because it was awful, right? And so that's, so now through this whole, maybe we'll get into it, but throughout my life up until about 4 years ago, I was this overthinker, super type A, stressed out, anxiety ridden person. And I figured out a way out of it. And now that's what I teach people, is how to create joy in their life now so that they can have calm and peace of mind and meaning and purpose today, and not wait for, the house or the car or the relationship or the success or whatever it is they think they're waiting for in order to be happy.
It's a good thing. Or probably not overthinking all those things either.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, our mind just likes to get all crazy and think all kinds of things that we, in an attempt to sort of control, right? Like, I want to make sure if I do this, then this will be the outcome. And it's sort of faulty thinking, because it really, like 99% of the time, that thing we think is going to happen doesn't happen, or it doesn't happen the way we think it's going to, but we don't go back and go, wait, I thought this way and it didn't work out how I wanted. How come I keep thinking this way?
When you were a little girl, did you have anxiety?
When I was little, no. I think it probably all stemmed from an experience that happened in my childhood, which was my folks got divorced at a young age, and my father and I still are very, very close. And just the thought of him moving out was I was just really distraught as a little kid. As it turns out, we spent a huge amount of time together. It was really kind of a non-issue, but those are the kind of the, formative years where we start to make decisions about things that happen. And then they sort of can plague us for our whole life if we don't kind of get a handle on, what were those defining moments and what did we decide at those moments?
Yeah. Did that incident affect you in relationships as you got older? The fact
Oh yeah,
that your parents
100%.
split. Yeah.
100%. Yeah. I mean, if we, a lot of times I'm, explaining to people that we create belief systems at a young age. They say anywhere from 0 to 5 or 8. They're not quite clear on the age, but those beliefs sort of shape how we see this world. And so it creates the rights and wrongs, like what is okay, how are people supposed to behave that makes us feel good. And that's a lot of what I talk about with clients, is how do I create this experience internally that feels good all the time, no matter what's going on outside. And what I've discovered by working with people in a class setting and also individually is that we all kind of have the same sort of series of beliefs, and they all are around this: I'm not good enough, I don't have value, I'm not worthy. And they all, you can call them different things, but they all stem around these same things. And part of it, is shaped because as kids, we're very, developmentally, we're very self-centered and self-focused. That's just part of our development. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just how it is. And so when things happen, we make decisions based on us as little kids, right? And so it was like my folks split up, and I decided that, gosh, I guess I'm just not lovable enough. These two people who supposedly really love me, I couldn't keep them together. And so as a kid, that's how you think. And so it makes sense that you would continue to think that and shape, relationships around these sorts of ideas, because that's kind of what I learned. Good, bad, right or wrong. I don't believe in those things anymore, but at the time I definitely did. And so it was like, oh, I'm not good enough, or I'm not lovable enough for my folks to stay together. These two people who say they love me. And so then, through that, I formed all kinds of relationships based on that, right? Relationships with friendships that were one-sided, where, I only showed up for them. They didn't show up for me. Both. And then in romantic relationships, the same, picking people who would not show up for me, or, not stay the long haul, or I would, not stay the long haul because, I didn't have these specific beliefs being met, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, I had a friend that I grew up with, and his parents split up, and he was adopted, and it really did a number on him. And as we were growing up, his idea was supposed to be a mom, a dad, two kids, the house, the dog, and that was what he wanted so bad all the time we were growing up after his parents split up. And all you talked about is when I'm grown up, I'm going to have a wife, I'm going to have some kids. That was his total focus, because of what happened to him when he was a kid. He wanted to be better for himself, and he really had a hard time. And even we were in high school dating girls, he had issues because of that.
So. It's really interesting, though, that everywhere that you look these days, and I don't know, was it just that previous generations didn't speak about it? Did everybody always have that? Because you look at it, it's almost a majority of people who speak to not feeling good enough, or not having a good enough self-esteem, or not loving yourself enough. And it's just astounding. Everywhere that you read, you see it, and you see it today. But was it always there, or did technology cause this, or did the increase in divorce cause it? Or this is something that just I probably overthink, but and it's everywhere. Like I just don't get why it is that it's so common. Or is it is it in every culture? Is our culture more susceptible to feeling that way?
I feel like, gosh, there's so many things I could say right now. One of which is social media does not help, right? Because it becomes this comparison. My life is beautiful and yours, and people are looking at it going, oh, they have everything together. They look, a certain way. They do certain things. Their life is magical and all the things, right? And so that comparison is not helping, for sure. I think divorce definitely helped, but I would say, prior to that, I think probably my generation is when a lot of this started. They just didn't have a lot of knowledge about what was going on. I think these things I believe it's the human experience. Like, we are meant to have these experiences. Like, we are meant for self-development. That's why we're here. It's not to amass money or things or success or all these things that we're told is what's going to make us happy and feel good. Those are very temporary things. You get the new car, that's super exciting for that moment, and then it just becomes a car. I don't care if it's a Lamborghini or a Toyota or whatever. At some point, it's just a car, A to B, right? And so we've got wrapped up in this idea that it looks like, you know, like you said to your friend, I want to have these things and then I'll be happy. And happiness is not, well, let me distinguish something first. Happiness is short-lived and based on something externally. That's the car, the house, success, you know, all those things. Joy, on the other hand, is an internal journey and an experience that includes some of those things about happy in terms of exuberance and excitement and all those things, but also has some nuances like peace of mind and stillness and calm. Not this overthinking thing, just like accepting what is, watching your life unfold versus being in resistance to it. And so when we try to find happiness, which is what most people would say, like, what do you want in your life? I want to be happy. They have equated it with the car, the house, the relationship, the location, and it has nothing to do with the location. It has to do with how do I feel in this life, and am I allowing life to be what it is versus butting up against it all the time.
So I would actually quite equate that. What I often say is, even when I get into a new project, you know, the honeymoon is over. And it, you know, it sounds like the happiness part of it, when it is about things, that honeymoon it's over after a bit, whereas joy is more sustainable.
100%. Yeah. I mean, happiness is really, you can't win at that game. You just can't. There's never going to be enough money. There's never going to be a nice enough car. There's never going to be a big enough house. Like literally, I only know because I was there. I was doing all those things. And I just was killing myself trying to make it happen. I mean, not just the house and the car, but like I was doing, you know, let me start CrossFit and then I'll do triathlons and then I'll do an Ironman. And then I'll do, you know, it's like, when does that end? It never ends. There is no end to that. It's cyclical. And so because there is no arriving, then I started to go, well, wait a minute, now what? You know, how do I can't, if those things aren't bringing me happiness on the long term, then now what? I don't know what to do. And so often we get into crisis, and that's when we start to go, well, I need something different to make me feel better. And that's why we have to look for things that are not as tangible, you know, because those are the easy things to get. Although I'm sure some people feel they're illusory, but they're actually the easier things to get than the, you know, just being in a space that feels good all the time.
Yeah, it's interesting you talk about, you know, all the CrossFit and all that, because I can remember, you know, my wife and I, we worked really hard. Our kids were active. You know, we were all go here, go, do, go, be there, be here, go there. And, you know, once they grew up, you know, and we just kind of got back to just ourselves. And you know, you're talking about, you know, all the other stuff it doesn't really matter. You know, when you finally realize that's just stuff, and it's in the, so, you know, then we as a couple, you know, then we got back to where we were back, you know, when we were dating and first got married, you know, and all that stuff, you know. So, you know, to us, that was our joy when we got back to that. You know, of course, we have grandkids now, and we're still back in the go a little bit, but it's a lot different. It's a lot different, but it's, you know, but we enjoy it. It makes us happy. So, you know, I know exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, I think that I mean, and when I say we, I'm including myself and our society, right? It's like some sort of badge of honor to be super busy all the time. And half the time, like I had a client the other day, he showed me his calendar and he said, I'm not sure whether you're going to congratulate me or be upset with me. And I said, if all of those things, like he was literally scheduled out like every hour, every minute, like not even bathroom breaks. I'm thinking to myself, like, how do you go to the bathroom when you have a meeting after another meeting after another? And I said, well, you know, it's not my place to congratulate or say anything about it, except do all of those things bring joy to you? And if they do, or the majority of them do, then fantastic. That sounds like a lovely schedule. But if they don't, then I just want you to like think about like, why do you need to have all of that space filled up? And where are you in all of that? Like, when do you get to have time for you that is quiet and still and at peace and not about doing something? You know, we're human beings. We're supposed to be being all over the place, not doing all over the place. And we can't do all over the place and be in the present moment. And so that's the sweet spot to what is available as sort of a guarantee. I mean, you talk about like, what do we know we can certainly have this moment right here, right? And so if this is the only guarantee, why do we spend the majority of our time thinking about what the future holds? I'm not saying don't plan away if you want to and it makes you feel good, but just know that this moment is all that matters. And so if this moment feels really good and you're doing the things that make you feel good with the people that make you feel good, then fantastic, good on you. If not, if you're spending the majority of your time doing things for others or trying to look good or keep up with the Joneses, then your life has a very different feeling to it.
Yeah, it's like being able to say no. You've got to be able to say no. I learned, that's one thing it took me a while to get, but once I figured out it's okay to say no, I don't have time, no, I can't do that, because I mean, after working all those hours and stuff I did, as my wife and I call it, we need some me time. And we're valuing that me time a lot. So.
Yeah, I think we were sort of given this message that like spending time doing things that make us feel good is selfish. And I'm here to say it's not, because filling up your bucket, obviously, I mean, that's cliche. Everybody says that when I'm full up, then I can give to you. But it is really, really true. It's 100% true. Like I've got nothing to give if I'm all tapped out. So I need to figure out ways to recharge myself so that I can give, not just give, and then there's nothing left for me.
I find too that when you do learn to say no, people aren't, it's not as disastrous as you think it would be. And, we almost make ourselves like that important that if we say no, someone's going to be hurt by it. And yet quite often they find another way to deal with it, someone else to help them out or whatever. I mean, there's certain times it's hard to say no when it's like family emergencies or something, obviously. Yeah. When I'm talking on a day-to basis, it isn't that horrible. And for you, it's better because like I say to people quite often, if you have a piled up schedule as well, and there's things you don't want to do, like there's some days you don't get anything done because you're looking at it going, I don't want to start and I don't know where to start. I always start with the things I like best. Some people say do the things you least like. I go, no, I guess my day goal is
yeah, most people say do the hardest things first.
Nope.
Get those done first.
Yeah, I think differently about things like that now because it's like, for me, there is no hardest thing. I've really cultivated my day to an extent where it just feels like I did a webinar last week. It was like a free webinar leading into a course and it didn't feel good. And I was like, it felt good talking about the things, but it didn't feel good preparing for it in terms of like all of the marketing things I had to do. And I was like, yeah, I'm not doing that anymore. I really want to sell my course and I really want people to know who I am and have an experience of me so that they're interested in taking the course because I feel like the things I talk about are super life-changing. But I'm not willing to do that anymore. So I just have to leave it up to, whoever's in control because it's certainly not me and just go, okay. Like I've set my intention that this is what I would like. I'd like to teach as many people as I can to figure out how to navigate this life in a way that feels really good. And that's not the way. So I just don't do those things anymore. But that took a long time to get to, especially even just the list thing. Just, I don't know about you, but I've always been a list person because it makes me super efficient. But also I had to kind of navigate myself around it because the list would start to take over. I was like, oh, I can't relax or I can't enjoy myself until the list is done. And now I just have to remind myself that just because I put it on a list doesn't mean it has to be done today or even tomorrow, and be okay with that.
See, there would have been a time back that decision would have caused you a lot of anxiety, wouldn't it?
Oh my gosh, 100%. Yeah. I mean, and it's so funny because I think people have or I know I did. I'll just talk about me. I had the experience that there was all this pressure, right, to do all these things. But when I finally figured it out, it was me. I was the one that was pressuring myself. And I was like, what are you trying to do to yourself here? That doesn't make sense to be that, And like I said, I used to call myself type A personality. Now I say I'm maybe like a B plus or a B. So I still have things I want to do in this world, but I cut myself a lot of slack and decide that, if I have to make the choice between giving myself a hard time about it and or getting it done, I have to decide, am I willing to do that at this moment?
Yeah, but we tend to put the pressure on ourselves. I think everybody does that. We put the most pressure on ourselves, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't know. Sometimes, I remember thinking back, and I was going through some journals and stuff when I was younger, and the fear of disappointing my parents. And yet, they would tell me they were disappointed when certain instances, but I think that to me, it was like everything. I was worried about everything instead of realizing that, even if they are disappointed in that moment, they're not going to hold on to it for the rest of their life. It's, but yeah, I think that we tend to be that way, not wanting to disappoint others, but we overdo it and we end up disappointing ourselves. So.
Yeah. I mean, we are the driving force in our lives. It's just that we don't recognize it, and it's like, we think it's our parents or it's, our spouses or our family or whatever. And I think, if we had the conversation with them in the midst of us stressing ourselves out, we'd recognize that they're not the ones that are forcing us or making us feel this way. Like, we get to choose that. And that's one of the things that I teach right out of the gate is, taking personal responsibility for what you've created in your life, and that doesn't look like responsibility, like heavy, hard. It just looks like when I have an experience, I'm choosing that. So if it's one that doesn't feel good, I've chosen that on some level. And most people would say, oh, well, this person made me feel this way, or this situation made me feel this way. And the reality is no, you're actually choosing. And so when you can recognize that you're separate from your emotions and your thoughts, and they're not who you actually are, they're just a representation of your past experience that you have sort of formed those beliefs we were talking about around, and that creates the experience you're having, then you can recognize that, oh, just because I'm on this sort of roller coaster ride of emotions or thought patterns that don't feel good, I can actually change my thoughts, because if I can think a thought and know what that thought is, who's the spectator of that thought? Who's the one thinking that? And if I can have an emotion and name that emotion, who's actually the person that, or the being or whatever, that's having that emotion? So for me, I was I thought I was the thoughts. I thought I was my emotions. And my life was literally this all day long, every day: reaction to this person, reaction to that circumstance or event. And when I began to be able to step back from that and the story that I was relating my whole life to, then I started to live very differently, because then I said, well, if there's this thought pattern of things that leads to this emotional experience that I don't like, if I can change it and continue to choose that changed thought over and over again, I'm not going to lie, it's not a simple fix, because you've been practicing this other way for so many years, right? So you've got to you can't go to the gym and lift one weight and be done, right? You got to keep going. You got to keep choosing and choosing and choosing. And so every time you get awareness that you're choosing these thought patterns that don't feel good, although they may feel like right because you've practiced them so long, when you choose the different, over and over and over again, eventually it becomes your norm. And that's how you move through these thoughts and emotional experiences that don't feel great. But you have to understand at first that you aren't them, so that you can separate yourself and recognize them when they're kind of ruling your world.
I feel that you were saying for so many years, perhaps there is the solution to start, and I think, I don't know if it's training to the parents on teaching the children to be more communicative about these certain things, because I really do feel that it does start fairly young in age when you start to have these feelings, but you don't know who to communicate them with. I mean, I remember I was telling the story where I got angry because I couldn't do a math problem, and I took my pencil and I scribbled, and I was in grade 2. So there's obviously something there about what I was expecting of myself. And then my mother got upset when the teacher told her I did that. And so, is there a way like it being taught in the schools, but also to the parents, so that, as you're growing up, you're not going to carry that for a lot of years. You're going to understand that your reaction is your choice.
Well, part of it has to do with this idea that we have that we're supposed to behave a certain way. And so from a young age, when a little kid like falls down, it's like, oh, it's okay, honey, like shake it off, get over it kind of a thing. And in order to heal and grow in our lives, and remember I said that what I believe we're here for is spiritual development or self-development or whatever you want to call that. It starts there. So the healing process got stinted at that moment when you were a little kid and they told you not to have any feelings, basically, because your feelings make me feel bad and I don't want to feel bad. And so if we can stop the cycle of that happening and make it more about it's okay to have those feelings, then as we get older, it's okay to have those feelings, because, anger and some of these, what I call low level experiences, are based on that very thing. It's like, I never got an opportunity to be angry, so now I'm going to be angry. And it's like, okay, you can be angry. You can choose anger if that's what you want. And when we choose it and allow it, I'm not saying wallow in, I'm just saying it's happening. Try not to, like we cry and it's inappropriate. We're trying to oh my God, don't want to see me crying, right? No, I'm telling you, feel all the emotions, feel them when you feel them. Stop stuffing them down, because the stuffing down creates all kinds of things. It creates crisis, both mentally, mental health wise, spiritually, and also in our body. I mean, if you really aren't listening to your body, disease happens. That's where it stems from, I believe, is from tamping down all these emotions, and they sit on a cellular level in your body. And then if you make the environment right by not eating right, having some mental health issues and or not, navigating those things in a way that makes sense, too stressed. I mean, we all know that stress leads to heart attacks, right? It's the same thing. It's the mind-body connection. I'm so stressed out, I cannot negotiate this. So I'm going to put those feelings in my body. And guess what happens? We have a heart attack, we have heart disease, or we have cancer, or any of those things. And we don't talk about these things, but I am 100% sure that that's where it comes from, is from not learning how to navigate these emotional experiences over and over and over again. And we're just not, our body's not meant to take that on like that.
Yeah.
So Erin, how can our listeners reach out to you?
I think the best way to get me is on Instagram, crazily enough. I love this platform. It's, I share a ton of videos with strategies and just things to think about all the time. And I like to share in my stories, just, memes that are positive and uplifting. So my handle is Erin, Erin, Mac, MAC, LLC. So you can find me on there. You can DM me. You can, if I have a course coming up, there'll be a funnel URL connected, or my website will be on there with, different podcast interviews and all kinds of other things that you can get in touch with me on.
Cool.
Thank you so much for sharing this. I love that. I love the joy. I love the name joy. Even the word is fun, It's like,
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. I think it's really important that we have these kinds of platforms so people can recognize that there's a different way to experience this life, and you're doing a wonderful thing here by giving them an opportunity to take a look at life a little bit differently.
Thanks so much, Erin.
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
Yeah,
Okay. It was a pleasure to meet you.
Absolutely.
my pleasure.
Take care.
You too.
Thank you for listening to this episode. Be sure to visit us at lifterstory.com.